We're going to go live. And we're live, and welcome to the third episode of the Grumbling Dwarf. We have a very special guest today in Bracky Sierra, Ginger Lord, a.k.a. Bracky. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing amazing, yeah. I'm loving the new patch. It's a really good patch.
Well, then we're going to have a chance to talk about it. I'm going to get my game going here so we can just have a game sort of playing in the background as we chat. And we will go through our basic questions. Come on, there we go. And then we will get on to talking about, first we'll talk about the Master Engineer. I know you have some good thoughts on the Master Engineer, and people love the Master Engineer. And they've been hoping for so long to find him in more games, and I know I've done testing and you've done testing, and I really can't wait to hear about that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the new patch in the game as it is. First, I want to go through the Grumbling Dwarf questions, and I want to ask you, the introduction questions before we get going. So, how long have you been grumbling? What was the first lore, story, or game that got you into playing the DAOE?
I was a grumbler before I even learnt about dwarves. I've always been someone who keeps grudges. You know, if you're late, if you're on the wrong side of the road, if you park near a junction, I'm going to remember it. So I've always been that sort of personality. But what actually made me play dwarfs was the Thorgrim Grudgebearer trailer, where he's talking about the book remaining full. That was my moment where I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to remember every grudge. That was my
Nice. So, what is your favorite DAOE unit in Total War Warhammer?
Oh, that's not even a competition. It's got to be Grumbling Guard. The renown, yeah.
Nice. Very good unit. I approve. All right, so what faction do you hate the most, and what unit would you specifically like to personally launch from a grudge thrower?
I don't like Empire, and I don't like steam tanks, but I think that's going to be difficult.
Where there's a will, there's a way, friend. Where there's a will, there's a way.
They have 160 armor. It's just ridiculous. If you have an armored units and they can't do any non-armor piercing damage to them, it just doesn't do anything. So yeah.
All right.
Steam tanks.
So, what faction do you enjoy beating the most as the DAOE?
It's not High Elves. Everyone seems to play High Elves against Dwarves, but they're not actually that good. It's probably Chaos. Yeah, Chaos, I'd say.
That is it.
They like to swarm you with just Forsaken and Chaff. Like, even their non-armor piercing units beat yours, so they can just spam whatever and beat you on infantry.
Uh-huh.
I don't like playing that. That's quite nasty.
Oh, I just saw Jake Woo's in the chat. Hi, Jake. How you doing? Okay, we'll keep going here. What would you say is the faction that gives you the most trouble?
Vampire counts sometimes. Like, when they buffed the coach, I had quite a bit of trouble dealing with that. Because you have to... If you don't deal with it in time, you've got zombie summons, and you just won't be able to deal with it. So that's quite difficult, I find.
And last but not least, what has you grumbling today?
The abilities on dwarves mainly. Like, the pricing of all dwarf units is really good, but the abilities on some of them are just awful. Like, they're like Silverhorn of Vengeance pre-patch bad. Like 10% charge bonus, whatever it was. That bad.
All right, so fair enough. So just to give a little bit of a preamble before we get talking about Master Engineers, so it was Bracky that got me into the concept of a Dwarf 20 stack, and I don't know how long ago you sent me that 2v2 replay, Bracky, but it was way over a year, and it really changed my thinking in the Dwarfs in general, and in gameplay in general. I know it's been around for a while maybe, but it was news to me, and I loved sort of the way you played your game and how you managed your armies and
yeah, I mean, that's what I love about the dwarves compared to other races. Other races don't have infantry that costs 325 gold. They cannot bring 20 units. I mean, like the high elves, they'd have to spam spearmen, but they can't do that anymore because of unit caps. Like, we are one of the few armies that can bring heavily armored, quite decent infantry en masse. Like, no other army can really do that. That's what the dwarves are good at, to me.
Nice. So, Master Engineers. Now, Master Engineer. I know I've been focused on testing the Master Engineer from time to time, like really, really early. I did tests, I bet you, 2 months into the game in 2016, and they were really,
you made a
really...
video, like, complaining how bad they were.
Yeah, like, I was so mad. I did some testing, and they just kept missing, and I have a video set to music that the two Master Engineers shoot at each other until they both run out of ammo, and that's how awful they were. Now they've been changed; they are more accurate. They do more damage. Their bullets travel a little. Like over the last 3 years, they've been changed. This is finally the big change that I think has brought them into people's focus, and some people are using them online now, bringing them down to 600 gold from 750 base. So tell me about the Master Engineer. Tell me about your thoughts on the Master Engineer as he has evolved, and tell me what you're thinking about using him for these days.
I mean, I did use the Master Engineer once or twice, but I never used him for his abilities. I've just never found them to be very good abilities. Like, some of them buff cannons and other stuff, but it's really not that amazing. Like, he gives a lot of accuracy buffs. Your artillery is ridiculously accurate anyway. What's the point of that? Fiery Ring of Thoria is the only good one, but I think the main advantage compared to all the other sort of dwarf missile units except the gyro bomber is that he's a single target, he's a single unit, he's a single entity. So you can hide him really easily. Like, if someone's trying to kill him, just put him in another unit. He's a single unit. You can move him through units. If he gets attacked by a chariot, big deal. He's just got knocked over. They can't do any damage to him. He's a single unit. He doesn't have to regroup when he's attacked. And he's got quite good range for a missile unit. But he's very easily blocked. I mean, that's what I like about him. He's just an annoying unit. He's difficult to kill. He does virtually no damage. He's got really low damage per second. But he's just annoying. Like, you feel compelled to kill him, even though you can't. That's what I like. It's the best. And, I mean, the big thing is, with my armies, I always like lots of range, because you're trying to pull your enemy in and out of position towards you. So if you've got a single, well, let's say one or two really annoying units with decent missile range, your opponent is going to have to try and get them with their missile units that aren't in range, or their melee units. So you can just keep kiting and being really annoying with these one or two really small units and forcing your enemy to come to you just with them.
Have you ever used the Master Engineer to flank? Like, I've thought, well, that's a build I want to try, is using my Master Engineer to sneak him through the line, like you say, and get behind to the side of a unit and just unload. Because that's one of the problems I find with the Dowies. It is hard to flank, but the Master Engineer sort of can do it.
I mean, the only way I ever flank is by having an enemy come at me and pulling one of my frontline units back. And then sort of, having them get collapsed on once they've fallen back a bit. Yeah,
just open the door and create a kind of a kill zone.
Yeah, there's no other way to do it unless you got like Slayers. It's just too slow, way too slow.
So, what are you using the Master Engineers for now? Like, who are you using them against, or how have you found them to be in this patch so far at 600 gold?
Because they're really high missile damage, and they haven't got like an explosive damage, they're only going to kill 1 or 2 to 3 entities at most per shot. So you're not going to use them against like high unit count things. You're going to have to use them against quite low unit counts. So like artillery crews.
Can they kill a cavalry, like models?
Yeah, so I've used them against Dragon Princes, the Regiment of Renown version. They can kill them.
Nice.
Really nicely. And that's why it's important to pay attention to that missile damage, because unlike a Thunderer, who spreads out their damage with all the units, this guy's just going to shoot 1 or 2. So you've got to really target low model count units with this guy.
Nice. Actually, that's really important. It's not really important to think about. I'd never really considered that, because you get like low model count Dragon Princes. Do you think you could kill like a troll No, there's no way you're
No, not
one-shotting
a
a
troll,
troll.
but he can definitely kill one or two dragon, whatever they're called, with a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, which factions are you trying them against, or have you had any had success with the Master Engineer so far, or enjoyed them, or theory crafting? Which would you like to play?
He's great against units with dragons or heavily armored cows.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like against. So, yeah, he's good against elves. He's
Mm-hmm.
good against dark elves as well.
Mm-hmm.
He can be good against wood elves.
Mm-hmm.
Basically elves. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's all I play on ladder because everyone seems to love playing those three races against dwarves.
Oh man. And well, getting to kill elves is not all that bad of a thing.
Well,
So,
it's getting a bit boring. Can we have some, other bad people to come and fight us, please?
so
Some beastmen's quite nice, yeah.
Beastman, yeah. So we've got this new patch, and I want to kind of pivot onto talking about the new patch and the new meta and the changes because they've been dramatic, and it's some of the small most annoying things on ladder are sort of gone, like the 9 model armies and stuff like that, and the faction balance is changing with the change of factions within, like Empire's gotten a lot stronger against a lot of other factions, etc., etc. But really, how have you seen this patch for the Dowie and for the dwarfs in general?
I think it's been absolutely fantastic. Normally with games, I've told you this before, but a patch comes in and everyone moans about nerfs and they're complaining about this unit being OP, and we really just haven't had that to such an extent with this patch. It's been a really good patch. I quite like it. I mean, the unit cap thing has been amazing because no longer can you get a full-on kite army, and you have to actually have a reasonably balanced army, which I like. And the costs for pretty much every lord, let's ignore Rune Lord and Rune Smith, because I'm not too sure about them, it's pretty spot on. Like, the costs are there. The only issue I have with some of the lords and heroic units are the abilities they have. That's the issue. I'm perfectly happy with their costs. Like, your base lord, fantastic. His cost 900 gold. He's got star metal plate. He's got rally. All these really good abilities. Belagar Arnhammer, also amazing. Silver shield.
1,000 gold now. Like,
yeah, that's amazing. Next one, Grumbling. He's got a really good smoke bomb ability. Rune Lord, when I look at him and his unique abilities, the only ones that are truly unique and useful are the armor buff, the slow, and the damage reduction, but they're just not good enough to be used. So I just can't use him. And Ungrim, after your Mazdamundi tests,
I hope they fix that. I'm praying to Valaya, Grungni, and Grimnir that they fix Ungrim and they fix oh my god! I don't know. Did you watch the video where I tested Gotrek?
Well,
I literally it deflated me.
Yeah, and Gotrek as well. Yeah, I mean, to me that makes sense because Zlak costs a lot more than Ungrim. I think the cost of Ungrim is actually good. The issue with Ungrim is his abilities. His abilities need to be revamped. His cost is good. You need to sort out his abilities because compared to every other lord in that lineup has a unique thing that makes them useful. You've got star metal plate, you've got charge defense against all, you've got AoE slow, immune to psychology, etc., etc. He has nothing. That's what you need to do. The cost is fine. You just need to give him some sort of cool ability because he's got nothing. And then onto heroes. Thane, amazing.
So you've been using the Thane in this patch?
Not much, but
it's only 500 gold, right?
I like Silverhorn. That's quite good. Engineer, just strip it down. Yeah, brilliant unit. Really annoying. But I haven't used Runesmith at all much. I've seen Zach Spain and other people using him. And I think the slow is actually really good, especially when you've got late game people cycle charging you. You can slow it down. But once again, same with the Rune Lord, you have both of those units were only bought for one reason. Every other ability they had was pretty much rubbish, apart from Hammer of
Carrot draws. Yes, yes, yes. Agreed.
They really need to just look at the other abilities that are on there. Price is good. Everything else is good. They just need to sort out the abilities. Yeah.
So
And all the
go ahead.
Yeah, you go. Well, I'm happy with all the infantry unit costing. I'm happy with all the missile infantry costing. Skyhammer gyro bomber. Yeah, I'm happy with everything. I haven't tried out the flame cannon though. I have not had enough guts to dare to try out a 1400 gold flame cannon in competitive multiplayer.
Bring it. Well, you're not going to play against the Wood Elves in competitive multiplayer. I was going to say I have it against the Wood Elves. It is so strong. It is so crushing. And but I mean, you can defend it. It's against the Wood Elves, and there's it's when you have such a massive advantage, you can pretty much bring anything and say, hey, my build is awesome, because you win pretty much no matter what. But I don't know. So we've got the heroes, we've got the lords. Have you played with Felix and Gotrek yet?
I haven't. No, I'm a bit jealous of you. One other thing, Longbeards with great weapons. I really like the buff to the base Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, that melee attack buff. But Longbeards just seem to have been left alone, which is a bit...
So, I mean, I know, like they're just, like, so they sort of have a place in the build, obviously, because they're a decent bodyguard if you need one, because they have encourage, and they have the mass to slow things down. They're pretty good against chariots if someone decides to run into them. Not that they have to. Like, that's sort of the funniest thing. Like, I know I played a game against Turin a long, long time ago, and he literally weaved through my entire army with a single unit of hounds and killed like two of my backline units, like Ulthar's Raiders and a group of Thunders. But like, this is the one thing about I know people, like some people who really get upset about the Dowie, they're like, well, it's really hard to break through. Like, you know what? I mean, people who are good, you don't ever have to actually fight the Dowie. You can just run around them, and that's why it's such a struggle. Like, okay, they're there, but for front line, Longbeards with great weapons just don't cut it. And hopefully, maybe I'll really focus on doing a battery of tests, because I know the next patch is coming up in December, and I'll try and put some data online, and hopefully we can have some influence and get a little bit of love onto the Longbeards with great weapons.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a really positive patch for the infantry. Like, I can't think of any infantry that I might not bring in a certain situation. They're all really good.
Well, and I saw I actually really like the +2 melee attack for the miners. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to be able to balance miners without making blasting charges either more expensive or making blasting charges a 60 model group and regular miners 75, or making regular miners 90, which I think would be very reasonable. Then you have they might you'd have to do some balancing there, but blasting charges are so damn good that I think they make it hard to balance those two groups at 75 gold apart.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that you get a 450 gold Dwarf Warrior unit with 85 armor and 40 melee defense is still just insanely good. Like,
well, yeah,
get that with other factions.
Dwarf Warriors and Longbeards, just base Longbeards, are the best in the game defensive.
I usually spam them because, why not? They're amazing. They'll hold for days.
So we've got some chat about the Master Engineer, a little bit about the new patch.
Shall we have a chat about missile units in general?
Yes, let's talk about missile units.
You've never really tested them.
Well, I actually have tested them, but I've tested the way I'm going to test them, if that makes sense, but not on camera, because I can't find good ways to test them, because you either got to test the melee aspect and the missile aspect, or the total DPS, and then what do you test against? It's actually really difficult to get off good tests with missiles. And I have one test with artillery that is very old. I mean, I did it 2 years ago for sure. And that test went off like a dog's age ago. And really, it just showed me that cannons are amazing and everything else is just not quite up to snuff. So missile units, go.
I mean, there are so many like different values or variables that are important, like accuracy, missile velocity, number of units, health, turning speed, etc., etc. That it's just pretty much impossible to do like a numbers-based test of these units.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is a lot of units will perform amazingly well, like both Iron Drakes and Trollhammer torpedoes. If you test them against single entities and big units, they both perform amazingly well. Like they'll get 3 or 4 chevrons.
Oh yeah.
Everything else will get 2.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that's not going to reflect a real game
Yep.
when they've been punted to the other side of the map by a chariot.
Mm-hmm.
It's unrealistic. So there's, unlike infantry where you can just charge them at each other, it's just ridiculously difficult. I mean, what I like to my criteria for missile infantry units is: do they have a flying lord who's just going to swing backwards and forwards and be unable to hit by like quarrelers or whatever? If yes, bring really high missile velocity units. So those units are things like engineers,
Mm-hmm.
who can't really dodge their shots, thunderers,
Yep.
gyrocopters, brimstone guns, also really high velocity shooting.
Are you?
Gyrobombers.
But gyrocopters are. I know they got the high velocity shooting, but I do struggle. They can miss.
Against flying units, they are a bit weak as well. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as in like they just for some reason can't shoot flying units that well.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 would be cannons, and organ guns and bolt throwers.
Mm-hmm.
Bolt
Mm-hmm.
throwers. I love bringing those units compared to other units because you can't dodge them.
Right.
When they fire at you, it's going to hit you because it's just so fast.
Yeah, the bolt thrower actually has a bolt thrower actually has a really pretty fast animation and has a bit of arc too.
I mean, I like the bolt thrower because it runs out of ammo really quickly, so you get your value quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got the same velocity as a cannon in terms of its missile velocity, so you're still not going to dodge it. It's still going to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I quite like it for that. And if you get 2 cannons, which is about 1,600 gold, and you test it against 3 bolt throwers, which is 1,650 gold,
Mm-hmm.
bolt throwers win pretty much every time, even if they have to walk up to the cannons to fire off.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, it might be worth testing yourself, but when I've tested it, I've found bolt throwers beat cannons. And that's why I like to bring them if I'm going up against a faction that I know is artillery.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they destroy my one bolt thrower, it doesn't really matter. I can move the crew to the other 2
Mm-hmm.
and just keep going and going and going. So that's why I like bolt throwers. I know loads of people love cannons, yes. If you get your cannons to live the entire match, they will do so much more damage than a bolt thrower because they have loads more ammunition, loads more missile damage. But that's never going to happen in like a match. It's never going to be 20 minutes with both cannons still alive. So.
Therein lies the problem. It's like that's kind of the long balance of artillery. You have like so with the original testing I did with artillery was I tested them assuming that you could test them from the outside of their range at the speed of our infantry, and that's sort of the most reliable difference you could get because as soon as infantry closes, every single faction versus Dowie is going to bring disruption tools. They're going to bring harpies, they're going to bring summons, they're going to bring single entity models or chariots that can smash through your line and disrupt your artillery. So, I mean, it's not to say that you can't keep shooting because you can, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's hard to calculate that when you look at it. Now, some people look at the total damage you can do in a short time, which is I know that's looking. That's why like the 3 Trollhammer build is so crushing because you one shot a chariot. You really do a ton of damage.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna get thrown out for this from the Engineers Guild. I don't like Trollhammer. I don't.
Hey, I know you don't play with them. I never played with them either. I mean, I've become a convert.
You have to play such tight formations for them to like provide supporting fire.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like it. Like I like going wide.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier because you can also have each artillery piece support each other artillery piece. And you can have overlapping ranges of fire with your 180 range engineers. That's what I like.
Well, it's that's going that wide where you're supporting each other. I know we got a wizard lizard in the chat, and he does that same thing. He uses artillery to support artillery. Hi Vin, how you doing? Just looking at the chat, seeing who's all around. I haven't been reading chat, but I know there's really two schools of thought on the builds, and you look at how dwarf players manage them. There's really the wide builds that have range support of elements of the build, and then there's different versions of tight builds where you have supported builds within the build, and then supported like a supported box where you have gyrocopters or cannons to pull things into them. And I know your builds are all like, I have never seen you play a tight build.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things I'm always really afraid of, especially with things like Tomb Kings and I think it's Vampire Counts, is that a lot of enemies against you are going to have spells.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to use spells that deal direct damage to you. They're going to do like melee debuffs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be AoEs. So if you, being the genius you are, decide to clump your entire army into a circle that's 40 meters in size
to get all your buffs,
what's your opponent going to do? Like, I'm just going to... Yeah, I can't. I really don't like it. And if you get overrun that way, there's no room for maneuver. That's it. You're in that circle. You're not going to do anything else. Yeah, I've tried it, but I get crushed like this. It can be too easy to overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
I also cringe when people don't bring like proper artillery or range as the dwarves, because I've seen some people bring like triple troll hammer. I don't know whether that was your channel or someone else.
It'll be mine. I have triple troll hammer with very little else.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the elf or someone else, well, it's going to be elves. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
And I was playing against you, I'd be like, nope, I'm just gonna run away and just force you. I'm just gonna kite you for 20 minutes and shoot you every so often, and then eventually come in. Like, I've got to bring that sort of big wide army. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think that the easiest way to win a game is to shoot a really expensive unit on your opponent's side. So if you're the dwarves and your opponent brings a 3 trillion gold mammoth or whatever,
yep,
you shoot that, you've won the game. Whereas if you go with a 20 stack, the average cost of your units is going to be really low. So when your opponent goes, what do I really need to kill? The answer is everything.
You know,
everything is dirt cheap.
That's what changed my thinking about the Dowie in general and how to build. Like, I don't play much multiplayer, but I love analyzing units. And when I saw the sort of the thinking behind your army, that's the first thing that was really like, what do you target? What do you kill? Okay, you're going to go after my Elthar's Raiders. Good for you. I have 19 other units that are going to be able to get some damage done. Now, I mean, I know I struggle to control 19 units because there's something to be said about the micro it takes to manage 19 units compared to 10 or 12 or something like that.
The most difficult micro thing for dwarves is gyrocopters. I find. So
hard, but one gyrocopter in an army, I've been absolutely loving that concept. I got it from UMAs, and there's.
I like to have 3.
Really?
2 for each corner that you deploy in, and
yep.
then you have 1 that goes right in front of your army. That's what I like to do. 3. Yeah, micro.
But it's hard to get everything like it's the. I saw someone call it a micro sync, and that's a really good description of it because, I find now I don't have a lot of micro. I am in a long beard. I'm pretty old, so I'm losing my ability to have any kind of micro, and that's why I think maybe that is why I really like 1, because I can actually halfway control it without losing control of my entire army. But is what it is.
They are really good late game as well, yeah. They are brilliant units. And I find a lot of opponents I go against, even though they're the highest costing unit in my army apart from the Lord, they don't go after them. Like, they're too busy killing the infantry and trying to get to my 550 gold bolt thrower for some reason.
Well, God, bolt throwers are like a honeypot. You're so correct. Like it is amazing how often people will go after bolt throwers and leave something expensive completely untouched. I don't know, what would you call that? There's got to
They're
be
just a distraction. Like, what was it? Distraction card effects or something like that.
yeah, like
It's just,
it's crazy. So we've got. I'll just check the chat here real quick. The stream makes me want to start a new dwarf campaign. Awesome. Do Giant Slayers best Mazdamundi? And the answer is I do have an episode. Go check it out. It's awesome. Jakku, yeah, he's done a vid on that, so I'm gonna look for it later. Then, so we're coming up to the end of the episode. Any final thoughts on Master Engineers, the patch, or ranged in general, Bracky, before we wrap it up?
they're all amazing. They're really low DPS though, so bring one if you're going against a rush faction, or bring none. That's my final thought on that. Yeah.
Bring one Master Engineer and try and get him into use.
Yeah, give him a go, because he is really annoying, and you know the best way to get your opponents to make a mistake is to bring.
You know, and thank you for reaching out, Bracky. I mean, I like
No problem.
I'm going to try, like we had a little chat obviously before we started. I am going to try and do sort of one-on-ones and get everyone I know into one of these episodes, so we could chat about the Dowie and chat about things that are irritating us relatively, things that are going in the book, and
There's a lot of things.
there's a lot of things, and so I'll say, once you've been on, you're always welcome to pop into
Brilliant.
Discord to say hello.
Thanks for having me on.
And
Good.
I want to thank you for sending me that replay so long ago, introducing me to the Dowie 20 stack, and enlightening everyone on the Master Engineer. I've got 2 builds with the Master Engineer. Maybe I need to have more.
Yeah, just try out the gyros as well. Like, bring 3. Go on.
I don't know if I've tried to bring 4 before, and I have games on stream, and it's pretty much a disaster. But I'll try it. I'll find a build, and I'll bring 3 gyros.
Yeah.
And I'll say this is my Bracky build.
Yeah.
All right. With that said, that is the end of our 3rd episode of the Grumbling Dwarf. Let me know in the chat what you thought, any questions you have for future episodes, or anyone you'd like to see on the episode. I know I have a ton of people I want to see. I've been talking to Gobble Slayer, Zach B. Sane. I've been talking to Shetland Apache, and there's a whole bunch of people that I want to get on, and I want to get on you guys that watch the show who love the Dowie. I would love to have you guys on the show so that you could be a part of this and join in the Grumbling Dwarf with me. I would really like to see you. So with that said, I hope you guys found this interesting, and I'll see you soon.